right, whenever you're ready. Up and running? Awesome.
All right, cool. Hello and welcome to the MulletCast, the podcast where business and pleasure collide. We're coming at you from a shared universe podcast studio today with Mark Callazzo. Mark is the founder of Alpha Funding. You can check out Alpha Funding at alphafunding.com. You can find them on Instagram at alpha_funding_solutions. Mark is also the owner of the Iron Room in Atlantic City. You can follow them on Instagram at IronRoomAC. Mark, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me.
I forgot to introduce myself. I'm a little rusty at this. I'm Evan Balmer.
I'm Mike Marcia. I'm the co-host tonight.
All right.
Today.
How come it's the MulletCast? Nobody has a mullet.
I know. See, the beauty is we thought initially it would be we're like the podcast with business in the front and party in the back.
Okay, I gotcha.
You know? So we're gonna learn about your business tendencies and then your wild side as well.
I wish I knew. I would have brought a bottle of bourbon or something.
That's right. So let's talk a little bit about Alpha Funding, which is one of the reasons we invited you here. Alpha is obviously a leading player in the hard money space.
Yeah.
How'd you get that rolling?
So I started Alpha back in 2007. I used to work with some mortgage bankers, mortgage brokers, and one of them came to me with a deal that he had to fund, and it was new construction, and he couldn't place it with a lender. And it was $150,000, and he said, "How about you put in 75, and I'll put in 75." And at the time, he was charging the guy 15% and 5 points.
Right.
I said, "Wow, this is a good return on my money." You know, I checked out the property, and he had met with the borrower and showed me his credit, and I didn't know much about the lending side. I knew the appraisal side and construction side. And I said, "All right, let's do it." So we each put in $75,000. The guy built the house and paid us back in 9 months. And
right.
I said, "Wow, this is great. Let's do another one."
Right.
And we did another one.
Right.
And then I said, I have all these mortgage brokers that I work with. Let me tell them what I'm looking to do and see if they have deals for me. And as I started telling people, I started getting more and more deals in. So then I ran out of money.
Right.
So I knew my partner, David Hansel, and he was in real estate. And I said, "I have this deal that I want to fund." And he didn't even know what I was talking about. And I said, I think at the time it was like a $200,000 deal. I said, "How about you put up 100 and I'll put up 100? And he's like, "All right, tell me about it." So he put up some money and we funded this deal together. And he was like, "Wow, this is great." So you can see this, the theme repeating.
Right.
So then we kind of ran out of his money. So he said, "I think I can raise capital for this." So we called a securities attorney that we know, and we set up, formal legal documents where we raised money. And initially, we were funding all our loans under what was called a co-lender structure, where we would go out and make a $200,000 loan, and then we would go back to our friends, who it was, and say, "Here's the loan, here's the details, here's what they're paying, and we'll divvy it up in $25,000 chunks." So one guy would say, "Okay, I'll take 25, I'll take 25, I'll take 25," and
right.
And we would take a skim and then return the rest of the money to them, and they started growing. So then, now if you invested in a loan, you go to a cocktail party, you're bragging to your friends, "Oh, I just invested in this loan, and I got 13% and 2 points," and they're like, "Wow, that's great." So now we had more people coming to want to invest. So it just kind of took off from there. We started Alpha officially as a business and not just a way to invest our own money. And we've grown, and the capital stack that we fund loans with has changed dramatically. But the business has grown. This year we're on pace to do about $100 million in loans.
Wow.
So
That's nice.
yeah.
And then do you do loans just in New Jersey, or are you all over the place?
We're predominantly New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, but heavily concentrated in New Jersey. Since we started with my own money and my friends' money, we were kind of very judicious with the capital. And initially I was like, well, I don't want to lend somewhere where I don't know the area.
Sure.
So we really just started in New Jersey. And then we kind of branched out into Philadelphia because we had a borrower that we worked with a long time in New Jersey, wanted to do some deals in Philly. So at least we had a comfort level with him. And then we got some geographic competency in Philly, and now we do a lot there. And we've branched out into New York. We have done some other states, but it's been more scenarios like that where we had a good borrower that we wanted to work with. You know, we're not advertising that we'll do loans in California or anything like that.
Right.
So
what do you think would have happened if that first deal went bad?
I don't think I'd be in the loan business right now.
Right.
So first loan went great. Most of our loans go great. We just had to do a review for one of the insurance companies that buys our loans now. Our default rate is really like a rounding error. You know, we've funded over $500 million in loans since we started.
Right.
We've lost under $100,000 in principal.
Wow.
So, like you said, it's our track record's really good. Luckily,
that's cool. I mean, it's insane how much that space has changed since 2007.
Yeah. So, like I said, initially it was just our money and our friends' money, and eventually I talked one of the local banks to give me a line of credit.
Right.
Then their regulator came in and said, no, you can't do this. They pulled the line of credit. We went to Wall Street back then, and we had some connections and had hedge funds and said, listen, you guys should be investing in this. And they said, we just can't wrap our hands around the fact that it's a $200,000 loan with a 7-month duration.
Right.
It was just a lot of brain damage for them to say, how are we going to underwrite this loan? It's just a lot of touching.
Right.
And they don't want to put out $2 million, they want to put out $50 million.
Right.
So now they're saying in their head, to put out $50 million, I got to touch all these loans, and they're paying off in 7 months, and I got to repeat the process. So, so we went up and down Wall Street for a long time trying to get interest because, it's a lot easier to get somebody to write a $50 million check than it is to get, all these doctors and lawyers to write, $25,000, $50,000, $100,000 checks.
Yeah.
So eventually, I guess it was about 5 years ago, Wall Street really said, hey, let's wrap our hands around this. And they've kind of systematized it where, they all have a box of what they want to invest in. And if the loan fits the box, they'll fund it. Right. And it's dramatically driven down the cost of capital. So where my first loan was 15%, 5 points, we're doing loans at 9% and 2 points right now.
Right.
So, obviously our margins squeezed down, but volume's up. There's always a certainty of capital now. I feel like I could fund $500 million in loans if I had them in front of me.
Right.
So it's nice, at least knowing there's a certainty of capital. There was times back then where we were like, holy, can I curse on here?
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I was like, holy shit, how are we going to get, money?
There's a
Swear
swear
jar.
jar.
Okay.
We're going to tap into that capital.
Yeah. I did an AM radio show, so I was, I got in trouble a lot.
Right.
So just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, we're all good on here.
AM is just about the worst. I mean, it wasn't like I can just curse. It was,
What time?
it was 4 to 6. So it was
Oh wow, that's early.
drive time AM.
That's
So
right,
I must have offended 2 of the 9 people that listened to us.
Well, people could have children in the car. All sorts of problems.
Yeah, I think the what do you call it? The territory that the thing went was about 6 miles.
Right.
So not a big audience to offend.
Totally.
So with Alpha, I do residential mortgages. The qualifying. How do you qualify somebody that wants to borrow money for a project?
I like to say that we go back to banking 101 kind of. We get an application, we pull credit, we run a background check, we do an appraisal, we run an environmental report, we make the borrowers go through, initially at least, not repeat borrowers, an interview with our underwriter.
Okay.
And that's to understand the deal, who are you buying this from? Because most of our stuff is dealing in distress situations. So who are you buying this from? What work needs to be done? Do you have the skill set to get this work done? And it's during that process that we weed out a lot of the bad actors, either, fraud or just people that can't, get the job done from A to B, or I'm really the straw man. It's my dad's project, and he's got a 490 FICO, and I'm just kind of stepping in for him. So a lot really comes out in the borrower's interview. But it's all just kind of a function of everything that a traditional bank would do. Credit, income, value of the appraisal, borrower's skill set to get the job done, just a little bit of everything.
And then you said that repeat clients, so you don't need to go through the interview process a second time, third time?
Yeah, once you go through the initial interview, it's kind of a piece of cake then. Now it's just give me the new address, give me the budget, we'll review the budget, we'll get the appraisal, and
awesome.
We're good to go or not good to go.
Nice.
But it's definitely even the first time a much more seamless process than banks and conventional financing.
My wife was on maternity leave. We had our second son in January, so all she did was watch HGTV.
Right.
And for those 3.5 months, she's like, I'm going to be a house flipper. I'm going to quit my day job. I'm like,
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, do you know what you're doing?
Since like 2007,
Yeah.
obviously the people that are coming in to borrow money must have changed drastically.
Well,
also.
everybody's a house flipper.
Right.
So
it's a cool thing to do.
The margin in deals overall has dramatically shrunk.
Right.
I'll tell you a funny story. I was I don't know if you guys follow golf. They have the World Long Drive Championship,
Okay.
and they had it down in Atlantic City a couple weeks ago.
Right.
And I got to play in the Pro-Am. So it's 4 amateurs and then the 1 pro. And we got there early, and we're sitting waiting on the range talking to him. And he's like, what do you do? What do you do? And I said, I do something called hard money lending. I didn't think he would have any idea. He goes, I'm a house flipper in Utah. I said, of course you are. So everybody you meet, it is. They just watch the TV shows, and that's we get to a lot of that in the interview because it's a lot easier than it looks on TV.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really easy to lose money.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's even if you buy right, which is the most important thing, you can screw it up along the way.
Right.
Plenty of times. And one of the things we also get to the bottom in the interview is, you're an electrician, your brother's a plumber, great, you guys can definitely do this. When are you going to do it? Because a lot of times we have a problem is the electrician is going to do it on his night off or his weekend, and you know what happens? You have kids and a life, and well, the first weekend his daughter has soccer, or so okay, I'll push it off to next weekend. Next weekend it rains, and then the following weekend, and next thing you know, this 3-month rehab goes into 9 months, and his profitable project is now unprofitable.
Okay.
So it's not just, do you have the skill set to get it done? It's do you have the time and the bandwidth and everything else, too. So,
So how do you see this affecting the overall marketplace? Not every lender out there is, maybe as careful as you are. Maybe they let people slide through that shouldn't be getting involved in this. Like, is there a ticking time bomb out there where?
I don't think so. I mean, I talk about how great our track record is. I like to take half credit for it. The other half is the market's been rising. So, you could kind of be a stupid lender and still do okay.
Right.
Time will tell when the market cools. And, it doesn't even have to go down like it did 10 years ago. Just if the market is stagnant to maybe a little soft, is when, the tide will go out and you'll see who's not wearing clothes.
Right.
So, I think there are a lot of, I don't want to say bad loans, but not the best quality loans being made because there's all this capital chasing loans.
Right.
So we get a call all the time from a hedge fund or a new company that just wants to buy paper from us or wants to partner with us, and they just all want to get capital out. I think they all went out, they all raised capital because they saw that there was rates were 12% and 3 points back then, and okay, my cost of capital is 7, so I got this big spread. And from when they dreamed up their idea and raised the capital to today, rates are down and there's a lot more players in the space. So I think there are a lot of guys just throwing money to get it out because they have it and they have to get it out.
Right.
And I'm not sure if that is going to lead to problems down the road.
Right.
But the one thing that I do with Alpha is always try to make sure that we're nimble, we're cautious, and if there's a problem in the market 2 years from now, I want to be ready to capitalize it. I want to be able to buy out somebody's portfolio and take over their problems, or so.
Right.
Absolutely. Now you mentioned that when you first started lending, You wanted to know what towns the projects were being in. In New Jersey or locally, what towns have you seen the biggest change?
Well, Asbury.
Asbury, yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. I was there with my wife on Sunday, and I don't know the name of that new project, the big high rise,
Right.
the one that started.
Oh yeah.
It might be like Asbury Beach Club or something.
Yeah.
Or something
Yeah, I
close.
mean-
It's kind of an eyesore.
So they're looking to sell the penthouses for $5 million.
Right.
Yeah, and they're gonna have a private beach section too.
Yeah. So I mean, Asbury when we started was, Asbury back in the day. So
Right.
I would say that's one of the biggest changes. We did a lot of business up in East Orange, and East Orange has really gentrified, and that's just because of the trains.
Right.
From that Brick Church train station to Manhattan, it's under a half hour.
Right.
So you get people that, they work in lower paying jobs in Manhattan. They can't afford to live in Jersey City or Queens or Brooklyn anymore. So I'll just go out to East Orange. And,
Right.
and it's actually a lot quicker to get from East Orange to downtown Manhattan than it is from Brooklyn
That's crazy. Right.
to Manhattan. So so obviously that whole area has changed a lot. And then I know you asked about New Jersey, but obviously Philadelphia. Another thing, we're kind of a little cautious about Philadelphia right now. I mean, just every block you turn down right now, there's, new townhouses going up, new developments going up. And, I get the demographics. People want to move to a city and move away from the suburbs. And they had the 10-year tax abatement, which, made sense if you're a retired couple and you lived in Princeton and you have $35,000 a year in taxes, and now you take your $1 million house and buy a $1 million townhouse, you're saving $35,000 a year in taxes for 10 years. Yeah. So,
It's insane.
the financial incentive to move there is great, but when these, tax abatements start phasing out, and they are, I'm not sure how that's going to affect it. And Philadelphia was also built on the colleges and the hospitals.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think college debt is just crazy.
Yep.
And I think kids just have to stop going to college. Like,
Yeah.
listen, you want to be a lawyer, a doctor, an accountant, an engineer, you got to go to college.
Right.
I hope.
If you want to be a podcaster these days, you don't have to go get your journalism degree anymore,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Just, cruise down here and get it rolling.
But I mean, I have two guys that work for me. I won't mention their names, and one got a degree in engineering, and now he works in hard money and has,
Right.
I don't want to say wasted his degree because obviously he learned some things.
Sure.
But, another guy got his degree in theater. So,
That, yeah.
you
A
know,
4-year school for theaters.
most people aren't working in what they do because
Right.
you think
Yeah.
about it. And my daughter just finished her freshman year in University of Rhode Island.
Right.
She doesn't know what she wants to do right now,
Sure.
so she's just declaring her major as public relations.
Right.
I hope she's not listening, but I think that she's. Here's my thought. If I had to predict her life, 30% chance she comes and works for me.
Right.
30% chance she goes and works for my sister. My sister owns a record company in Manhattan, much more exciting than hard money.
Right.
The rest is, either she's a housewife and doesn't work at all, or gets a job doing something.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
if I had to bet, does she use her public relations degree? I don't know.
Right. So I got two questions for you. One, I'm curious what your major was, but maybe more importantly, because you touched on your sister owns a label as well. So you're obviously a very entrepreneurial family. Where does that background come from?
Well, our parents were teachers, so not from them. My grandfather on my mother's side owned a small grocery store,
Right.
smaller than a supermarket, bigger than a Wawa.
Mhm.
And I think he did well. I mean, he wasn't a multimillionaire, but he did well. And I think growing up, I said, shit, if I want to have nice stuff in life, I got to work for myself.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny.
So-
My grandparents ran an employment agency. There was literally like 3 desks, but I remember going there as a kid and think it was the coolest thing to work for yourself.
Yeah. So
That's wild.
that's where it came from, I guess. And my sister kind of odd situation. So she was an intern. It's called Megaforce Records.
Right.
And she went to college at Seton Hall, and they were based out of Marlboro or Manalapan, I'm not sure.
Right.
And she interned there, and then went on to work there. And then they kind of started downsizing and got older, and were looking to get out of business. And she ended up buying it from them. So
that's wild. And they have a pretty historic catalog of music.
Yeah, and I'll tell you a funny story. I have most of that catalog in my garage.
Dear.
So she lives in Manhattan. Her office is in Manhattan. She has no space. So
Right.
I have all the master reels of all these metal bands
Right.
in my garage, and I'm moving in a year. And I said, listen, 6 months from before I'm moving, I'm going to start putting this stuff on eBay if you don't get it out of here. So you better start planning now, because I think Metallica master reel
Right.
gotta go
awesome.
for a lot of money on eBay.
Oh,
so.
yeah, big
for
time.
sure.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, in addition to hard money lending and alpha, you're also really into food and wine.
Yeah.
So you're the
Can you
owner
tell?
of the Iron Room. Iron Room was named by Wine Spectator you received a Best of award for excellence.
Yes.
How did you get into food, wine, etc., and how did Iron Room come about?
I hated wine growing up as a kid. I drank with your wife in high school, rum and cokes, and that was like the extent. And Miller Lite was,
Nice.
kind of the extent of my my alcohol drinking, even through college. I was, rum and coke, maybe Jack and Coke, and because my experience with wine was stealing wine from my parents' wine rack, taking a bottle when they weren't looking, and. The house I grew up in didn't have air conditioning. So, and my parents didn't drink wine. So I'm guessing those bottles sat there for 10 years.
Right.
And you had these crazy temperature fluctuations. So it probably got to be 85, 90 degrees at sometimes in the winter and the summer. And then it got ice cold. And I remember drinking these bottles, and I drank them because I wanted to drink, but I was like, how could somebody enjoy this? So it was probably around 2000. Somebody brought me a bottle of Pinot Noir for a gift, and I remember what it was. And I was like, I don't like wine. To my wife, just stick it wherever. And, one night, my wife opened it, and I said, let me taste it, because the girl that got it for me was into wine at the time.
Right.
So I tasted it, and it was great. And I said, wow, I've been missing the boat with wine.
Right.
So I'm like looking it up. I'm like, was this like a super expensive bottle of wine? Is this like the best bottle of wine in the world? And, it turned out it was like a $20 bottle of wine. So, I kind of get obsessive with things. So then I started reading about wine and drinking wine, and I ended up going to wine school.
You did.
It's called the WSET, Wine Spirits Education Trust, and there's 5 levels, and I passed the 3rd level, and the 4th level is I'd have to quit my job. It's like full-time. And then the 5th level is Master of Wine, and there's only about, I don't know, by now maybe 400 of them in the world.
Wow.
So I'm nowhere near that yet. So, but I learned a lot about wine, and it just kind of took off from there. And wine is kind of magical in the sense that it's just grapes and yeast and a winemaker's skill and the dirt.
Right.
And, Cabernet from California tastes completely different than Cabernet from Bordeaux, which tastes completely different than a Cabernet from Argentina.
Right.
And it just is kind of amazing to taste that and see how it evolves. And that's why I like whiskey too, because whiskey's really just whatever grain and the distiller's skill at the end of the day. So I like beer, I can appreciate it, but I mean, the brewer can put coriander or honey or coffee or whatever, and they can kind of create flavors, whereas the winemaker has to coax them out of the grapes that are already there.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
not to get too romantic on us, but,
So then how did Iron Room come about?
So the Iron Room is actually my 3rd restaurant, and I for the longest time I said my last, but I'll tell you about the new one at the end of the story. I just wanted to open the restaurant that I wanted to eat in and that I wanted to drink in, because I had this ego, and I said, you know what? people are gonna. It was 30 seats originally. I said.
Right.
I could fill a 30-seat restaurant just based off of what I want to eat, what I want to drink, and if the product is good, people will come. So we came up with this eclectic menu, and the place is really unique. It was behind a liquor store, so you had to walk through a liquor store. It was kind of like a speakeasy restaurant, and we had a great cocktail list. Now we have over 400 whiskeys by the glass. The wine list is great. The food was super eclectic, and it was dead. So, I said, I guess I'm wrong, and this is my third restaurant. My other two were very successful and kind of nowhere near as good a quality of concept and food and everything else.
Right.
And I said, I guess I have to go a little bit to the center, and I looked back at the opening menu that we had, and I was like, wow, maybe I kind of get why people didn't want to eat here. And people came, but it was more of a, hey, let's go out for, a fancy occasion, or let's go celebrate, or let's go whatever. And it wasn't a, hey, let's go here once a week or twice a week.
Right.
And, so we kind of made the menu, a little more mainstream and approachable, but still have a lot of the dishes that we like. So now you can go in there and you can get, just a great burger. We have a Kobe beef burger. Right. We have a big cheese selection. You can pick a cheese to put on there, or you can get, our grilled octopus, or you can get, some. We make a cured salmon in house.
Right.
We do always have like a lamb preparation on the menu, but it's all just a little more approachable. But it's still just good locally sourced food when we can.
Nice.
And like you said, great wine list. And even a wine list, it was very eclectic in the beginning. Now we have the basics and we have some crazy stuff if you want to try it.
That's cool.
So
Do you still own the other two? Or
no, sold the other two.
okay.
So that's why I always said this is my third and my last. And then I just embarked on this project down in Atlantic City called the Tennessee Avenue Project. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Atlantic City. Most people know Atlantic City, the boardwalk and the casinos and the Marina District, and that's kind of the extent of what they know. Atlantic City is doesn't have a lot of retail and service amenities that a big city like that needs. So there's no coffee shop.
Right.
There was no place to go do yoga. There was no walkability. You had places like the Iron Room, and you had places like Tony Baloney's, and it's 3 miles between them. So nobody's going to walk or bar crawl from the Iron Room to Tony Baloney's. So I started buying up, properties on Tennessee Avenue on the Ocean Block between Pacific and the Boardwalk, with the intent of just being a real estate developer and finding operators to come in and open up a coffee shop, a yoga shop, a beer garden, all these things that are missing in the city, and especially all these things that aren't concentrated. And nobody wanted to come. So I said, well, now I've got all this property. I bought 9 buildings and vacant lots.
Right.
I said, am I going over my time?
No, you're
No, you're good.
So, I own all this land now, and nobody wants to come. So I said, I guess I'm going to have to partner with people because people are afraid to come in there. So I managed to find Grace and Glory Yoga is a yoga studio down in just outside of Atlantic City.
Right.
And they were the first to sign on, and I built out a yoga studio for them, and it's amazing. If you go in there, you feel like you're in Brooklyn. They're doing amazing. And I knew a husband and wife team down there. She was the head pastry chef for Harrah's, Caesar's Bally's, and the husband was the sous chef at Carmine's.
Right.
And she's the best, pastry chef in the world, in my opinion. And she wanted to open a bean-to-bar chocolate shop. And what that is where she buys cocoa beans, makes her own chocolate from bean to bar.
Wow,
and
That's awesome. Yeah.
and now she's selling chocolate. But this is kind of a hybrid concept where half the building is a factory. So you go in and you can see her making chocolate.
That's
so
cool.
she sorts beans, she roasts beans, and my daughter, who's going for PR, works there. So that's her PR degree at work.
No, she's sorting beans.
She's sorting beans.
Promoting the
she's
beans.
doing the website.
Nice.
All
right, so we got some PR skills.
Yeah, a little bit. So the other half, which the building kind of cut in half is separated by glass, is a bar. So now you can take your wife and sit at the bar and watch them make chocolate and have a glass of wine and eat chocolate or desserts. There's no savory dishes on the menu. It's all desserts and chocolate. So I'm kind of half involved in this with
cool.
on the, at least on the financial side. I'm not really involved with running it, but
Right.
I go down there and I drink wine and eat chocolate. So I did make the wine menu there.
What was your interest in Atlantic City originally?
I'm not sure what initially drew me there, but I wanted to open the Iron Room there because it's the best food and wine scene in New Jersey.
Right.
And I wanted to be a part of it. And knowing that the competition is harder, but I just wanted to be a part of it. I mean, you think about it, you have, he was mentioning Chef Vola, and you have great small places all the way up to Bobby Flay and Wolfgang Puck and Jose Garces and everywhere in between. And now, Mark Forgione's steakhouse is coming back on Thursday, and Jose Garces is reopening Amada. And so it really does have small places, big celebrity chefs and everything in between. Right. So that's the scene I want to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Do you see Atlantic City really coming back over the next couple of years?
I do. There's a lot in play right now. I think Hard Rock opening is I hate to say game changer, but in a sense game changing because they're raising the bar in entertainment. So they've announced that they're going to have 300 nights out of the next 365 nights of live entertainment.
Wow,
that's awesome.
Atlantic City's been a weekend town for the most part, where you come in Saturday night, a room is $599, and you can get some decent acts. And Tuesday night, even in the summer, rooms are cheap and there's nothing going on.
Right.
And Hard Rock's trying to change that with the quality of the acts and the timing of them.
Right.
Make it a destination.
Yeah. And they're advertising. So my in-laws live in Long Island, and they're like, "What's going on?" All we see are ads for Hard Rock and Ocean Resort is what they're calling the new Revel or the old Revel.
Is that they're also making a water park, right? Or is
no? So that's that's been the talk in Atlantic City for the last 10 years.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, it never happened. Every casino wanted to have a water park.
Yeah.
Nobody's managed to pull the trigger. So you have these two casinos opening, but more important than that is you have Stockton is opening a campus in the city now.
Right.
Oh, very cool.
So the southern part of town, kind of where Knife and Fork is, a little bit south of Tropicana, this is opening in September. So September, they're going to have 1,500 kids enrolled in college in Atlantic City.
Wow.
So just off the bat, they'll be spending money. They'll be going out and doing things.
Yeah.
Their parents are going to come drop them off.
Right.
And I don't remember the statistic, but I think it was like 60% of kids end up living within 25 miles of their college after they graduate.
Right.
So hopefully it will get people to come and live in the city because, it's a tale of two cities. It's the casino industry, how that's doing, and then it's the city itself, how the city itself is doing. And to fix the city itself, you just need more residents.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a little over 30,000 residents in this big city. If you get 10,000 new productive residents, it changes the entire landscape of the city.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you in AC for the long haul personally?
Yeah, so we talked about my oldest daughter. My youngest is going to be a senior this year, and when she graduates next year, we're selling and moving to Atlantic City. So I'm kind of going all in. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
I mean, I wonder, AC and Asbury are. There's probably a lot to learn down there from what's going on in Asbury, right?
Yes, and I've been saying it for years because I've been there now for a few mayoral administrations, and they always want to draw ties to Philadelphia.
Right.
And you can't compare them. I mean, Philadelphia is a major city.
Sure.
And Atlantic City's not even a secondary city.
Right.
And I've said all along, Asbury is the comp. I mean, it was a awful area on the ocean, very small population, and that's kind of what they should do. And so after starting this Tennessee Avenue project, which I'll get back to telling you about the other places we have opening, a gentleman who still has a bunch of restaurants and bars in Asbury called me out of the blue. We knew a mutual realtor, and he said, "Tell me about what's going on down there." He introduced himself, so I told him. He said, "I want to be a part of this."
Right.
He's been buying up New York Avenue,
Oh, wow.
which is a block and a half over.
Right.
So, and he's going to open up a jazz club and
Nice.
some apartments. And I never heard of this before. It's called glamping.
Right.
It's
What is that?
it's glamorous camping.
That's
so
right.
he wants to put like this, fenced-in area with amenities that's connected to his one bar that he's going to open, where they put those Airstream trailers, and
That's
you can
cool.
Airbnb that instead of staying in a
Oh.
casino. So.
Wow.
That's actually cool.
Yeah, really cool concept. I never heard of it,
Right.
but so we're actually, for the last 2 years, we've been calling this the Tennessee Avenue Project, and we're just starting to rebrand it as the Orange Loop because it encompasses Tennessee, St. James, and New York, and on Monopoly, those are the orange
Right.
properties. So,
That's really cool.
that's awesome.
so what's good is kind of not only am I the only crazy person that's believing in this area, a guy who he gets a lot of credit for helping Asbury along.
Right.
Kind of sees the same thing that I see, and he's coming in and betting in a big way. So,
That's cool.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think like in a way that creates, like you said, it's if you don't have that infrastructure of like the coffee place, the yoga place, all that kind of stuff, who's going to live? It's not a cool place to live.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But if you create that kind of identity, now you've got like neighborhoods like what they did in New York, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Look at
So
Brooklyn.
that's
Right.
yeah. So now the yoga place has been open since October. The chocolate place has been open since April. The coffee shop's opening in about 2 weeks, and there's a beer garden opening
Nice.
sometime in August, and a live music venue. It's going to be around September, and then he's going to have New York Avenue open probably around the same time.
That's
so,
cool.
And how's available housing in the area, in the off streets from there?
It's hit or miss. There's some good housing, there's some bad housing, but the goal is to get millennial kids to come in and now buy the shitty townhouse and renovate it and move 3 of your friends in and start that way. But now there's at least a reason for you to live in this area and something for you to do when you live there.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
That's
So-
very cool.
So I have a place down there now, and not far from Tennessee Avenue. And in the morning, my only option is to go to Hot Bagels
Right.
and get bagels are really good. The coffee's mediocre at best.
Yeah.
So there's just like I said, these essential things that are just missing.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Awesome.
So you're gonna go beyond Tennessee Ave once that shakes out.
I don't know. It's this has been the toughest project I ever worked on. It's just there's so many obstacles along the way, and the first was safety. I mean, it was a bad street when I started buying it
Right.
up. First the building I bought where the chocolate shop is at right now, I paid $20,000 for this building. So
Wow.
if you're buying a beach block building for $20,000, you got to imagine it's in a pretty bad spot.
That's insane.
So I've learned a lot about heroin and crack and social services, and it's actually sad. The heroin epidemic and everything that's going on. It's like if you walk down and you see somebody strung out on heroin, you just kind of like I used to look at them as a different person, but really it's somebody's kid, and it's somebody's kid probably from a good family that just who knows how they got in their head, I want to try heroin. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but it's happening all the time, and I've been working with the city to close down rooming houses and move the needle exchange. There was a needle exchange in the tourism zone in Atlantic City.
Wow.
And Atlantic City has become the mecca for social services. So all the people that are crazy or on drugs or whatever it is most of them aren't from Atlantic City.
Right.
Yeah.
The nonprofits locate there, and then they're incentivized to treat more people. So now they're advertising to all these areas, send us your heroin addicts.
Right.
So now you're sending heroin addicts to the tourism zone. It's just crazy.
Right.
So working with the city, the CRDA, the police to clean up the area was really the first thing, because the first tenant was a yoga studio, and
Right.
I remember walking with the police chief and the mayor at the time and saying, 30 days from now we're going to have women in yoga pants walking up and down this street.
Yeah.
Like, we need to act now. Like, enough is enough.
Right.
So you're supported by the community, law enforcement.
Everybody's been supportive of it, but
Okay.
it's everybody's still, hands are tied. I mean, like I said, I've learned stuff that I never imagined I'd learn. So there's bail reform. I can say whatever I want here, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I kind of recently learned that you could just pull your penis out and smoke crack in public. If they arrest you, they'll book you, and you'll be back on the street in about an hour.
Wow.
So if you're a police officer,
Okay, ideas over there, Mike.
yeah, well, it's good to know.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah.
just in case.
Noted.
So now you're a police officer, and you encounter 5 of these situations a day.
Right. You just start ignoring.
Half the time you just start ignoring it, because what's the point? Like, this guy's going to be back on the street.
Right.
It's just, and not that that's not a real crime, because I'm not trying to diminish it, but
Sure.
you're a cop. You have an 8-hour shift. You can try to protect somebody from being stabbed, or the guy that's smoking crack and not really bothering anybody.
Right. Yeah.
So, so it's just stuff like that. It's just there's just so many things that you do, and you say, I'm a real estate developer. What,
Right.
Now I got to worry about bail reform. But
Exactly.
so to answer your question, I don't want to do a project like this again. I'm going to see this one to the end, and I'm glad that there's other people that have come on board, and I partnered with 2 local millennials who have kind of helped with this whole process and the community development and getting everybody else involved. And without them, I wouldn't have been able to get to where I was. But it's an eye opener. Like, I go home and I tell my wife some of the stories, and it's
insane. I mean, I guess the Atlantic City history is riddled with like these, like a never-ending story almost of people have tried to overcome these things. And
I always have that in the back of my head, like what makes this time different. But there are just a lot of external factors. Like you said, the college, and attached to the college, South Jersey Gas is opening their headquarters there as well. There's a lot of tax incentives for you to relocate your business there. You get up to $10,000 per employee for 10 years to move your business there.
Wow.
More if it's a higher paid or higher tech employee.
Right.
So,
I think at some point too, it's like when you're priced out of everywhere else in the state, where it's only a natural that someone
people are
going to
migrate
benefit.
there.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the settings, beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, there's the beach is there. The entertainment's there, the restaurants are there, everything's there, all the elements are there.
Right.
It's just you got to work on some of the pockets of problems.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, we could talk to you all day long.
Yeah.
Sure.
Next time I'll come back and I'll bring some wine and
I'm with that.
some Iron Room food up. So.
I think maybe we should do a podcast on location possibly next time. And we can see some Atlantic
That's a
City
great
stuff.
idea.
And then we never
cool.
got. Let's let Ming jump in real quick, because Ming's spends a lot of time in AC and has been to the Iron Room also.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Ming Chen. I can't sit silent here and not talk about the Iron Room. I've been there on several occasions, and I was in Atlantic City once. I kind of felt trapped. I was like, well, where do I eat here? What's good here? What is kind of off? What is unusual and awesome? And after a couple Google searches, found out about this restaurant in the back of a wine shop.
Right.
That had garnered amazing reviews. So I grabbed a friend and we went over there, and we had an amazing meal, just amazing experience. And the second time, I was having a challenging weekend in Atlantic City. Won't name any names, but I was with two friends who had come in from out of town, and they had been having challenging weekends as well. And I'm like, I got this place where I want to take you to. It'll erase any bad memories of this weekend.
Right.
And we went over there, and I didn't really I had met them that weekend, but I didn't really know them, and we bonded there at the Iron Room. We've seen we're great friends now, but we bonded over great wine and amazing food and just the amazing atmosphere. So. Mark, I want to thank you for opening such a great place.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
I recommend. Yeah, if you're in Atlantic City, you have to go there. You just have to. It's a must. It's a must go to place.
Yeah, definitely. We can. I mean, if tech wise you can do, we could definitely do a little Iron Room podcast.
Oh,
that'd
I'm
be
all
awesome.
for it. Any
That'd be awesome.
for sure.
I'm in.
Sounds cool. All right, Mark, thanks again for coming in.
All right,
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Once again, you can check out, learn more about Mark's Alpha Funding at alphafunding.com, at alpha_funding_solutions on Instagram, also at Iron Room AC on Instagram. Once again, I'm Evan Baumer. I'm an attorney with the Baumer Law Group. You can check me out at baumerlawgroup.com and at Evan Baumer.
Mike Mercia. You can check me out at mortgageguy_Mike on Instagram. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark.
Really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Cool. Thanks, man.
All right,
Appreciate it.
definitely.
I
That
am
was
like
cool.